This story is about a place that was very special. It was in Hong Kong, a big city in Asia. This place was called Kowloon Walled City. Imagine the most crowded place you can think of. Many, many people living in one small area. Kowloon Walled City was like that, but even more. It was maybe the most crowded place in human history. Think about a very small piece of land. Now, imagine buildings built very close together on this land. Then, imagine more buildings built right on top of those buildings, and more on top of those. Taller and taller, like a very tall, messy stack of boxes. This is how Kowloon Walled City looked from the outside. It was not just one building, but thousands of small homes and businesses packed together. It looked like one giant tall block from above, almost like a city built inside one huge building. Inside this giant block, it was like a complex maze. There were small paths and very narrow alleys between the buildings. The buildings were so high and so close together that sunlight could not reach the ground in many places. It was often dark, damp, and sometimes wet inside the city, with pipes running everywhere and water dripping down. Life inside this place was very different from life in a normal city. Hong Kong had laws and police, but inside the walled city, it was not always clear who had control. For many years, because of old agreements between China and Britain, neither government fully managed the area. This meant there were not many police or clear rules inside. This situation made it a place where some people did bad things, like crime, illegal gambling, or selling drugs. But it is important to remember that many good and ordinary people lived there too. They needed a place to live that was cheap. They built small shops, places to eat, and factories inside. People worked hard to make a living. Families lived together, often many people in small rooms. It was a community, even though it was strange, crowded, and sometimes dangerous. People had to find ways to help each other, to live and survive in this unique environment. Kowloon Walled City does not exist anymore. The governments of Hong Kong and China decided it was too dangerous and too difficult to manage. They made plans to take it down. People who lived there had to move out. The city was carefully removed between 1993 and 1994. So it was gone by the middle of the 1990s. But the story of this place is still very interesting. How did so many people live so close together? What was daily life like with all the buildings and people? How did they manage without normal city services or clear laws? In this story, which has 8 chapters, we will learn more about Kowloon Walled City. We will look at its strange history. We will find out about the people who lived there and what they did. We will learn about the problems and the good things about this truly unique place. It was a city like no other city in the world. Let us start our journey into the Kowloon-walled city and discover its amazing story. 2. A strange place. Kowloon-walled city was a very special place located in Hong Kong. For many years, most of Hong Kong was under the control of Britain. But the walled city was different. It was technically Chinese land. This strange situation started many years ago, long before it became so crowded. It began as a small Chinese military fort. After some wars, in 1898, Britain leased new areas around the fort for 99 years. But the agreement specifically said that the walled city itself would remain under Chinese rule. This created a very unique situation. The small area of the walled city was a Chinese enclave, a piece of China located physically inside British Hong Kong. For a long time, neither the Chinese government nor the British government fully controlled it. The British Hong Kong government adopted what was known as a hands-off policy, meaning they mostly left it alone. It was left to its own fate. Because there was no clear government or police inside, the walled city developed without the usual rules you would find in a city. There were no building regulations, so people built rooms and structures on top of each other as the population grew rapidly. Businesses like dentists or food stalls could operate without licenses or inspections that were required outside. This lack of official oversight made it a place where many people could live or work cheaply, outside the normal system of laws and taxes. It was truly a city within a city. The contrast with the streets just outside was very clear. Stepping inside felt like entering another world, with different rules or almost no rules at all. The area was small, about 6.5 acres, the size of maybe 4 football fields. But it became home to many thousands of people because of the incredibly dense buildings. This strange legal status, being neither fully British nor fully Chinese in practice, allowed it to grow into the crowded, complex, and unique place it became. It was unlike anywhere else on Earth because of its unusual history and lack of governance. 3. Growing bigger. Early on, Kowloon Walled City was just a small fort used by soldiers, starting many years ago. Later, a wall was built around it in 1847. But during the Second World War, Japanese forces took the stones from the wall to make the nearby Kai Tak Airport bigger. After the war, many people came to Hong Kong. They needed places to live, and many had little money. Because the walled city had no clear rules or strong government control, people started moving there. The British and Chinese governments had a hands-off policy for the area. This made it a cheap place to build a home without needing permits or following building laws. More and more people came, seeking refuge and opportunity. There were about 2,000 people living there by 1947. A big fire in 1950 destroyed many homes, which surprisingly led to even more building as people rebuilt and new arrivals built homes on the empty land. As the number of people grew, there was not much land left inside the old fort area. So people started building upwards. They built new houses, small factories, and workshops right on top of older ones. This unplanned growth meant the city began to grow taller and taller, becoming a giant, dense block of interconnected buildings. There were no building codes or official architects overseeing the work. People just built what they needed, fitting structures into every available space, often with poor foundations and few standard utilities. Buildings went up to 10 or sometimes 14 floors high. They could not build taller because big airplanes flew very low over the city to land at Kai Tak Airport. The construction was unregulated, leading to buildings built extremely close together. This created narrow alleyways, often only 1 or 2 meters wide, where sunlight rarely reached. Inside, people built informal paths and stairs on upper levels, forming a complex network. By the late 1980s, official estimates counted around 33,000 people, though some thought the number was higher, maybe 50,000. This huge number of people lived in a very small area, about 6.5 acres, making it the most densely populated place on Earth at that time. The city grew bigger and bigger, layer by layer, year after year, because people kept coming and building in this unique place. 4. Life inside. The dark side. Life inside the Kowloon-walled city had a dark side. For many people living there, conditions were very difficult and sometimes dangerous. Living in this unique place meant facing many problems every day. It was a place of deep shadow. The buildings were built incredibly close together, floor after floor, up to 14 stories high. This created narrow alleys and spaces where sunlight could almost never reach the ground level. It was often dark, requiring lights to be on all the time, even in the middle of the day. Walking through these dark paths felt like being in a maze, always hidden from the sun. The physical environment was also unpleasant. Water pipes leaked often, dripping water down onto the paths below. People had limited ways to deal with rubbish, sometimes throwing it out of windows. This led to piles of garbage and bad smells everywhere. Sanitation was a big problem. Getting basic services was a challenge. There were only a few official water supply points for thousands of residents. This meant many people had to carry heavy buckets of water a long distance, often climbing many stairs to get it home. Electricity was mostly taken illegally. Complex networks of wires hung messily everywhere inside, making it unsafe and unplanned. A big reason for these problems was the lack of formal government control. For many years, neither the British Hong Kong government nor China took full responsibility for the walled city. This created a place with almost no laws enforced. People sometimes called it the City of Anarchy. This lack of rules made it easy for criminal activities to happen. Powerful criminal gangs, known as triads, operated openly. They controlled illegal businesses like gambling houses and places where people could buy and use drugs such as opium and heroin. These activities made the city unsafe for residents, and violence was sometimes a risk. Police from Hong Kong found it very difficult and dangerous to enter the city, so they rarely came inside unless in large groups. Even services that seem normal were unregulated. Many people worked as doctors or dentists inside the city without having proper licenses or training. If you were sick or needed help, you had to trust someone who might not be qualified. Food places also operated without health inspections, which could lead to sickness. The constant closeness, the lack of clean air and light, the difficulty getting water and safe electricity, and the presence of crime made life very hard. The buildings were not built by professional engineers or architects, adding another layer of risk to the crowded homes. Living in the walled city meant accepting these difficult and often risky conditions. It was a place where the dark side of having no rules was clear in the daily struggles of its residents. Despite the community spirit that existed, the problems of sanitation, safety, and crime were a big part of life inside. 5. Life inside. The bright side. Life inside the walled city was often talked about for its problems, but it also had good sides. For many people, it was home, and they built a real community there. People lived very close together, in small homes stacked high. Because of this, neighbors knew each other well. It felt like a large, close-knit family, even if it was a bit strange from the outside. This close living meant people often helped each other without asking for anything back. If someone was sick, a neighbor might bring them food. If a pipe was leaking, people might work together to try and fix it, even without proper tools or rules. This support system was very important for everyone living in the difficult conditions. They relied on each other every day. The city was also full of life because of all the small businesses. People started their own shops and workshops inside the buildings. It was a very busy place for making things. There were places that made food items that were popular all over Hong Kong, like fish balls or noodles. Other small factories made simple products, such as small plastic parts or toys, or those plastic flowers. These businesses were important because they gave people jobs and helped the city's economy work, even without official rules or taxes. Children, too, found ways to enjoy life. The narrow paths below were not always safe or clean, so the rooftops became their playgrounds. It was a place where they could run around, play games with friends, and see the sky above the tall buildings. The rooftops were also used by adults for drying clothes, keeping pets, or just gathering to talk when the weather was good. The old Yamen building was a heart for the community. It was a place where people could gather away from their small apartments. They would meet friends, talk about their day, share news, or just relax. It helped people feel connected. Even without official services, some things worked surprisingly well. People could send and receive mail. Letters and packages found their way to the right doors inside the complicated structure. This shows that people created their own ways of managing things and keeping order in their daily lives. So while the walled city was challenging, it was also a place of strong community, hard work, and daily life happening in its own unique way. People found friendship, help, and a sense of belonging. They built a life for themselves and found happiness despite the crowded and difficult conditions. Life inside truly had a bright side, showing the strength of people living together. 6. A noisy neighbor. Kowloon Walled City was a place inside Hong Kong. It was very special, but it was also very close to something important outside its walls, Kai Tak Airport. This was a big airport for many airplanes. The walled city was only about 800 meters away from the airport runways. This was a very short distance. When planes came to land at Kai Tak Airport, they flew very low over the city. They came down right above the rooftops of the buildings. Imagine seeing the bottom of a huge airplane from your window, just a short distance away, many times a day. This was normal for people living there. The noise from these big planes was extremely loud. It was a deep roar that filled the narrow spaces between buildings. Conversations stopped in shops and homes. Babies often woke up from sleep. Sometimes the ground seemed to shake a little from the power of the engines. This loud sound was not just noise. It was a constant presence in the air. It was like having a giant, noisy neighbor overhead all the time, day and night. It was the sound of the world outside pressing in on their unique city. Because the planes flew so low, the buildings in the walled city had a height limit. They could not be built taller than 14 floors. If they were higher than 14 stories, they would be in the path of the plane's landing. This rule was different from the many unwritten rules inside the city itself. It was a strict rule from the outside world that everyone in the walled city followed. People built up,
floor by floor, making the city taller, but they stopped at 14 levels to avoid the planes. This constant, loud noise was a daily experience for thousands of people. It was another thing that made living in the walled city so different from other places in Hong Kong. It was the city that lived under the constant roar of the planes. 7. The end of the city.
The governments of Hong Kong and China had discussions about the walled city. In 1987, they made a big decision together. They announced that the walled city must be removed. They thought the city was too dangerous for the people living there. The tall, crowded buildings were old and built without proper plans or safety rules. There was a big risk of fires starting and spreading very quickly because everything was so close together. Also, the buildings were not strong and could fall down, which was dangerous for everyone. So they made a plan to clear the city completely. This meant everyone living inside the walled city had to move out. For the many thousands of people who called it home, leaving was a very difficult time. Some people felt very sad to lose the unique community and way of life they had in the walled city. To help the residents move, the government offered money as compensation. A special group called the Hong Kong Housing Authority helped make the plan for giving out this money. The government gave around 2.7 billion Hong Kong dollars in total. This was a large amount, about 350 million US dollars at that time. This money was for the estimated 33,000 people and the many small businesses operating in the city. Most residents agreed to take the money and find new homes outside the walled city. However, a small number of people did not want to leave their lives there. They stayed even after the agreement was made. Between the end of 1991 and the middle of 1992, these people were asked many times and then had to leave their homes. They were moved out of the city by the authorities. After all the people were gone, the walled city was quiet and empty. It was like a ghost city for a short time before the physical work began. Then the hard job of taking it down started. Demolition began in March of 1993. Workers used big machines to break apart the buildings. The tall buildings came down level by level. It was a very big and long job because the city was so large and complex. The demolition finished in April of 1994. The land was cleared and the place where the unique walled city once stood was empty and flat. It was truly the end of the city. 8. Remembering the city. Today, the place where Kowloon Walled City stood looks very different. It is now a quiet, beautiful park. The park is called Kowloon Walled City Park. There are green trees and open spaces. It opened a long time ago, in December of 1995. Some things from the old city are still there. You can see the old Yamen building. This building was important. It was used for different things over many years. Now it is a place where people can learn about the walled city. Inside, there is a collection of photos showing what life was like before. The old south gate of the city is also still in the park. You can see parts of its foundation and some stone pieces. These pieces have words written on them from the old gate. There are also some old wells and stones from the city that you can look at. The park's design is like old Chinese gardens, which makes it a calm place to visit. People remember the walled city in different ways. Some people remember it as a dangerous place with many problems, like crime and not clean living spaces. They remember the dark alleys and the noise from the nearby airport. But many other people remember the good things. They think about the strong community and how people helped each other. It was a place where people worked hard and lived close together like a big family. They made their own way when there was no official help. Even though the city is gone, its story is still important. It has given ideas to many people. You can see the walled city in books, movies, and games. Often it is shown as a dark, busy, and strange place. This shows how unique the city was. It was a special and unique part of history that many people still think about today. It was like no other place in the world. What do you think it was like to live in a place like the walled city?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.